liquor is no longer king in Colorado. Liquor sales have now been topped.
Aha. Remember I spoke of this with wine and the problems with weed being legalized in the great Golden State.
Marijuana is now the number one most acquired drug of choice in Colorado. And will California follow? Will Washington follow? Will Oregon? Will Alaska? Will
Washington
all these
has
other
nothing
states
to offer? I know there's a little like a joke of a wine region in Washington, but Washington has nothing to offer as opposed to California. I mean, look where we are. I mean, wine is very important to our economy. And
Washington is the second biggest growing wine region in the United States.
Yeah, but I mean,
next to California.
Yeah, but okay.
It's actually a mover and a shaker now.
Next to California, but California is like Shaun White at the Olympics, and Washington is like the guy that snowboards for the Argentinian team. It's like it's far and away different.
$1.2 million more in marijuana was sold last year in Colorado than booze at $10.5 million.
That didn't take long.
Booze fell behind. They sold $11.3 million worth of cannabis last year in Colorado. Can you imagine what that would be in California? I mean, our population compared to Colorado is probably, 5 times that, if not more?
What Colorado saw,
the sales tax is 50%.
Right. And what Colorado saw a boom in was weed tourism, and actually people that were living in weed prohibitive states moving to Colorado as a result of the legalization of weed because it helped out their medical situation. I remember seeing a number of stories on the news where kids had like debilitating diseases, and cannabis was outlawed in their state. So they're like, you know what? We're just going to find a job in Denver and move to Colorado. And a lot of people did that. So you think about our square footage, our desirability on the, with the climate and the geography and everything that we have going on here in the Golden State. I mean, I wholeheartedly expect the same thing to happen in California that is happening in Colorado. Yeah,
but I mean, I don't know if alcohol sales are going down. I just think the amount of weed being sold is more than the amount of alcohol. So what if alcohol sales went up by, I don't know, $500,000 in 2017? It's just weed sales then, towered it. I don't know if that makes it a bad thing. You know what I mean?
You only have, okay, I know you're a silver lining cloud guy.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, and you want me to get to my reason why? It's because a lot of people are taking cannabis now, and they're buying it. Breweries are buying it, and they're infusing it in their beers. Wineries are doing the same thing. They're starting to talk about doing it with hard liquors like whiskeys and vodkas and gins and other things.
But you're talking like very specialized segment of it. It's not like it's their whole business model. Still, their whole business model is built on spirits or wine or beer or whatever their whole thing is. And they might offer a weed beer, but they're not buying tons of cannabis infused beers. That's not their entire business model. Okay, you see what I'm saying? It's specialized, and it's specialized for a reason, because they recognize the need for it. Okay, that people do want to consume that kind of stuff, but it's still not the core of their business. And you have something that I like to refer to as a buzz budget. Okay, I have friends who smoke weed, and I have friends that drink alcohol, and I have friends who do both.
Okay.
My friends that do both, they're not over the top with weed. They're not over the top with booze. They're about 50-50.
They go about 50-50.
They go about 50-50.
But do you know anybody who used to drink booze and now is just smoking weed?
No.
And they quit drinking booze? No. I don't think that's going to happen.
But it doesn't matter. Because whereas you were, like in the past, if you were dedicating 100% of your budget, like my dad is one of these people. My dad used to drink a lot, okay?
Now he's just a smoker.
My dad used to drink a lot. Now he drinks very rarely because he smokes weed like every day. Like not every day like Warren G, but like every day all day long. He might have a Crown Royal and Coke every once in a while, but that's like a treat once a week. Now he smokes weed 5 times a day. Okay,
because we all know
legal.
your dad. I mean, you've talked about him for years.
But now,
because he's a pothead.
But because it's legal now, he's like, I don't care who's around, where I'm at, doesn't matter. I'm smoking whenever I want to smoke.
I guess it depends why you drink. I like to drink because I like the flavor of things. I like the flavor of certain beers. I like the flavor of certain liquors and wine. Same thing. Where, it's not just about getting high or drunk or whatever. That's kind of a bonus that comes with it after 3. I was always, and we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, I was always envious of people who could drink large amounts and not get drunk. So I think I look at things very different because I actually like to drink but not get all drunk, because the problem is I used to drink and then I'd get too drunk and then I'd fall asleep or have to go home and my night would be cut short. And I was always just, maybe it's because I'm a shorter guy, always just trying to figure out how to, help my tolerance out since it wasn't as high as like you were in college. I was always just trying to keep up with you, but, not fall over. And it was hard to do, and you and other friends. So I guess I look at it a little bit different. I would see a population that says, hey, listen, cannabis is great for medical issues. Cannabis is great for my anxiety or stress or whatever. Or, just want to cut loose and escape the day like you would with a cocktail. Mm-hmm. But I would think people drink cocktails because they taste good, because they like a certain kind of beer. You don't just pound, you don't just go buy a craft beer.
True.
Because you want to get drunk. I mean, you get drunk.
But the majority of people that drink alcohol want a desired effect for it. That's why it's a drug, okay?
Yeah, I did see something about that.
We're not talking about, no, I like the taste of it. That's an excuse that alcoholics have for wanting to get a buzz. I just like the taste of it. Come on. If you like the taste,
what do you mean?
If you like the taste of it, then drink the non-alcoholic version of it. They make non-alcoholic versions of every drink imaginable, except for wine. But people, what are non-alcoholic sales? Nothing. People don't like, if I'm given the choice of a Coors Cutter or a Coca-Cola, I'm going with Coca-Cola every time. That tastes good over a Coors Cutter.
All right. Let's see. I saw this this study the other day, but it was I don't have it in front of me now. I can't find it, but it was about people drinking and the reason they drink, and it was usually to escape their daily life.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's what weed is for. I mean, for some people that's medicinal.
But I think we can live in a state or a society where these two can get along just fine.
I know, but
just
I'm
like
saying
beer and wine,
you're going to end up losing money. You're going to lose up money because there's only so much room in the buzz budget, and the buzz budget is not a monetary thing. It's a what your body can handle type of thing.
Okay,
and that's what your buzz is. And if you're going to get a little bit of your buzz from marijuana, you're going to cut back on your alcohol quite a bit. Vice versa, if you're going to get a lot of your buzz from alcohol, you're going to cut back on marijuana quite a bit. So we're asking you the question on social media and on the phone lines, 543-3693. Weirdly enough, brought to you by 805beer.com. If you had to choose one, which would you choose? Weed or booze? Very simple.
Just a simple question. Weed or booze if you had to choose? And overwhelmingly, people wrote in weed, chronic, ganja, all that kind of good stuff. And it was interesting because, was it Raina? She said, well, consider both sides, all right? Weed equals food, sleep, relief of aches and pains, laughter, and calm. All right. Nothing negative there, according to her.
Depending on
kind of wondering
what you get a hold of.
Booze equals $10,000 DUI fine. Horny, loud, hangover, aches and pains. Did she?
I think. Okay, listen. I think you can get busted for.
I'm sorry. That's not horny. My eyes aren't what they used to be since I turned 40. That is ornery, not horny.
Oh. You can get busted for driving under the influence of marijuana.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, it'll be a DUI just like alcohol. Yeah. And, they're really cracking down on that right now that it's legal. They're looking for people that are high and driving. Don't think you can get high and drive because you'll get busted for it. But, I mean, on the other side of things, you don't have a hangover.
I would say when we asked the question, weed or booze on Facebook, it was overwhelmingly, I would say 95% of people said weed. Wouldn't you?
And
I mean,
yeah.
I saw just a smattering.
And the people that decided to write why weed, it was a lot of them had to do with the side effects. I mean, you just don't get the hangover that you get if you drink too much. So it all depends on how you like to consume your booze. If you like to have a drink and you enjoy the flavors of the drink and you don't like to get all messed up, then booze probably isn't such a big deal, and it's not going to cost you that much money because weed's more expensive. It still is.
When we were talking about this earlier, it was coming from the standpoint of an economist standpoint, because in Colorado, weed revenue has surpassed alcohol revenue. Now, Colorado doesn't have the alcohol natural resources that the state of California has with its burgeoning wine industry. But I was reading some things over the last couple of hours that say, like what kind of effects is the weed crop's going to have on the wine production here in the Golden State. And economists they're not saying that the sky is falling for wine people, but that wine people need to keep an eye on it, type thing, is if I'm going to summarize everything that I've read in the last couple hours about it. And I think that's where the inspiration for the poll question today came.
Yeah, okay? I just think it's a little too early for economists to say anything. I mean, it hasn't even been legal a year yet.
Right.
So, or it has been legal a year, just a little bit over a year now. But there's just, you can't even go out and buy it at this point.
I know nothing about growing weed. Is growing weed climate good for wine vines? So, like, do they share the same climates that you would need? Like, if I wanted to grow
I think weed is a crop just like any other crop. And we apparently can grow anything here. I mean, we have amazing vegetables that they grow in the Rio Grande Valley, and fruits like strawberries, and grapes can grow here depending on what kind they are, and Paso Robles, and, so, I mean, and they grow apples up in the North County. So, and almonds and nuts and all these different things. So I'm pretty sure you can grow anything here. I think the climate and the soils are just perfect for growing just about anything.
What happened prior to the weed legalization in our home state of Washington was in a region known as the apple producing region of the United States. It's the greater Wenatchee, Lake Chelan area. It's in the center of the state, a little to the north. And a lot of people that owned apple orchards, families that owned apple orchards for decades, centuries, these apple orchards were in place. A lot of people realized that wine and wine tourism was more lucrative than selling apples, and they uprooted their apple trees and replaced them with wine vines.
Yeah.
And they now have wineries where apple orchards used to be. Could the same thing happen for the Golden State, but instead of replacing apples for wine, replacing wine for weed? So that's where the poll question comes today. We're asking you, if you had to pick one, you are a farmer, okay? You are a farmer, and you're making wine, but somebody comes to you and says, you can make a lot more money with weed. Which one are you going to choose? Are you going to keep going with the traditional wine?
At this point in time, if you're asking me, I'm going to stay with what's stable right now and what's recognized not just by the state, but federally legal.
So I see what you're saying. You're afraid of Jeff Sessions, essentially. Like, you don't want to.
I'm not afraid of him, but I'm not going to uproot my vines,
all your
my
vines
vineyard
for 3 years of marijuana growing and then be like shut down.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think what everybody was answering on the Facebook question was what do they prefer to drink or consume?
Yeah.
You're asking on the poll question at KZSE.com, what would you like, financially to be involved with?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you had to choose one, is it weed or wine? Anonymous text says he's grown in Santa Maria and he's grown in North County. I'm guessing wheat is what he's talking about. Both produce very good quality, and you figure the plants, you have a whole year's supply for personal use, so it doesn't cost anything, but then the cost to get the seed or the clones for those to, I guess, make more is what ends up being your cost on that. But once you have grapes in place, they just continuously grow, right? It's not It's like tomatoes. Like I have tomato plants, and they'll come back every year.
You don't have to replant a vine. No, the vine is there, and it will age over time, and every year you'll get a crop. You'll have to take care of it. You have to prune it, and then you have to manage the canopy once it starts to, come in and stuff. But
is weed the same? Does weed continue to go?
I don't know.
I mean,
I would imagine, yeah. I would imagine.
I know you people hate it when I call it weed, but that's what I'm going to refer to it as. I grew up in a generation in which it was referred to weed, so I'm not hip to your cannabis.
Well, you live in California. It's
Cannabis
2018,
game,
and it's referred to as cannabis too.
Cannabis boy.
You can say cannabis. It's not going to make you sound like you're a stoner or something. It actually makes you sound more intelligent. When you start using the word weed, you sound dumb. I mean, you just sound like a stoner. That's all. I know you want to sound smart because that's your goal in life, and I understand.
I don't
that's
care.
Totally fair. I'm saying if you want to sound smart, then you should say cannabis.
Why would I? I refer to it as weed.
If you want to sound dumb, then say
it's
weed.
It's what it is. Okay, it's weed.
Well, it's not just weed anymore. We refer to it
as weed. Why? All of a sudden, when it became legal, we had to change the name of it.
Well, it's the cultivars, the people that are cultivating these products.
They
now,
want to be
the
taken serious.
The way they're using them, it's more than just weed.
Cannabinoids.
You don't even know what a cannabinoid is.
Sounds like a robot to me. Cannabinoids. At least with weed, I know what it is. When somebody said cannabinoids to me, I was like, "What are you talking about? Cannabinoids?" And they're like, "I thought that was seriously. I thought it was weed robots." When somebody said it, cannabinoids. Like, okay, come on, dude.
I totally think, by the way, that the revenue will outpace alcohol in this state, especially wine.
Wine revenue.
I know wine is always going to be very popular here, and I don't think it's going to hurt the industry. But I think, but the problem is, I think it's a little too soon right now. I think in 10 to 20 years that will be the case when weed is legalized in more states and maybe federally recognized as a alternative. Well, not alternative is a broad word, but as a I don't want to call it a drug of choice, even though it is a drug. But you know what I mean? As a
cannabinoid of choice? Do you want to call it that?
No. I'm comparing it to alcohol.
For the cultivators?
I'm comparing it to wine, beer, spirits. I mean, it'll be considered in the same category as wine, beer, and spirits, okay? When it is there and it is federally recognized everywhere, I think California will grow the hell out of weed, and I think they'll grow the best weed in the country because we grow the best stuff here.
If I'm a wine grower right now, if I'm a grape grower, why wouldn't I want to get ahead of the game? And maybe not put all my eggs in that weed basket, cannabis basket. But
see, you just make a big deal about it. You don't have to make a big deal about it. Call it weed if you want.
You're the one who making a big deal about it.
No, I'm not. I was just giving you an explanation.
You said I sound like a dummy when I refer to it as weed.
I think you sound. Yeah, I think you just sound uneducated. You just sound like a junior high kid who's trying to score a lid.
I like to score lids.
Gary says, "Call it weed, no big deal." He says plants have to be replanted every year.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, hold on a second. One is called an annual. The other is called a perennial. Oh, my God. Now I feel like I'm shopping for geraniums with my mom. With my mom.
I'm at the plant section at Lowe's or something.
Perennial. I still don't know what a perennial is.
Perennial is something.
Is that a one-time?
You have to replant.
Yeah, where an annual makes sense that annually it will come back every year.
I'm not sure, but
hold on. Here's
listen,
somebody.
I don't know what a cannabinoid is.
You want to take a call?
I thought it was a robot that tried to push weed on me.
Do you want to finish your point, or do you want to get some help?
I'd love to find out more, yes.
All right, go ahead. You're on the air.
Hey, guys. Good morning. I just want to make a small correction on what you guys are talking about. It's actually called cannabinoids, not cannabinoids.
That's not hard to say.
No, not exactly. But the whole thing is that I want you guys to know that it's going to be a big industry, just like what you guys are talking about, and chances are there's going to be a hell of a lot, if it does go as big as alcohol does in this area, there's going to be a hell of a lot more things like DUIs, arrests, things like that because of it as well.
Right.
Because, there's not as many overdoses, not as many, just a ton of fatalities that are attached to alcohol that aren't attached to marijuana. So, if our culture does...
Are they not attached to marijuana because it hasn't been as prevalent?
Wait a second. Hold on a second. What was your name, by the way?
My name is Ed.
All right, Ed. I mean, they are doing studies now, and they're saying DUIs are up in Colorado and
Washington,
and they're more. There's more of them because more people are driving high, and they are having accidents. So when you say DUIs, I would slow your roll a little bit. That was one of the major reasons why this county decided not to just offer up dispensaries everywhere, and they're making it very hard for people to cultivate here, is because of the studies that have been coming out of Washington and Colorado about the DUI accidents from people being high on marijuana or cannabis. So
comparatively speaking, Are you saying that those studies are showing that there's just as many alcohol-related? Because people, yes, are going to start now that it's legal. Some people that never did it before are going to start. I get it. But the culture has been smoking pot since every bit as long as alcohol has been around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair.
I understand that, but
and so how many? And so how many people have?
It being illegal, it means our access to it has not been as easy as it is now. Now that it is easier, then we can expect to see an increase in DUI-related accidents, just like you have in Washington and Colorado.
And Ed, and the important thing here is they've never been able to detect, marijuana. They're still trying to figure out how they detect marijuana in your system, how much THC is in your system. Does that mean that you were actually pretty high at the time that you got pulled over or were in an accident? Because THC will stay in your bloodstream for a long time. So I think these are all things they're trying to figure out, because it's still early, So, yeah, people have been drunk and got a DUI or got into a DUI accident. They've been high, but they weren't able to detect that. So they're still working on that. So I don't think there's an answer.
The jury's still out.
Because I know you were going to ask, well, how many people have been detected under, just marijuana or cannabis being high and got a DUI or were in an accident like that? I think that's what they're still trying to figure out from everyone I've talked to. And so,
understood. And I understand the numbers aren't finite. There's always going to be variables in there that don't exist otherwise. But we've got, this is coming from a perspective of having been an alcoholic. I no longer drink, and I don't smoke pot either because I'm part of a program that doesn't allow me to do anything that affects me from the head up. But when I was drinking, I was also smoking, and I had no problem getting in a car and doing what I needed to do when I was smoking. But when I had alcohol in my system, I was nowhere near the kind of person you wanted to have on the road.
Yeah.
And so, plus the other thing is, too, we've got to also consider the opioid crisis that we have here. So if we can use marijuana, if we can have marijuana in the program of, using for enjoyment, and eliminate use of opioids, or at least close them down, not stop them, but minimize them.
You're saying it's the lesser of all evils.
Yeah. No, and I know what he's saying, and there's still a lot of studying to be done. And thank you for the call, Ed. We appreciate it.
Because there are other people that would argue that it's the gateway to an opioid.
Yeah, and then you could go down there's the medical side of this whole thing too, with they're trying to discover stuff. So, but at the end of the day, our question is asking you, do you think weed will outpace booze in California as far as a commodity, something that we will grow? And I definitely think that will be there. I just think it's going to take some time.
If the feds, and a lot of things have to
a lot of red tape
fall into line. But what we've seen in Washington is they got rid of apples and replaced it with grapevines. Now those grapevines probably are going to be replaced with weed plants eventually. And that is probably the same future for the state of California. And where does that put us, where we live, in the very productive wine region, a hugely productive wine region, and our economy? Is it boost our economy because you can make more on weed, or the places that are being more progressive with their weed, or they're allowed to be more progressive with their weed, are they going to leapfrog us, and we're just going to be kind of toiling here? Like all of a sudden, wine, like somebody just wrote in and said, weed will never be as yuppie, Jake did. He said, weed will never be as yuppie as wine is.
It kind of has its own yuppiness to it.
No, it doesn't.
Like, it does. It totally has its own, like, they're talking about these terpenes now where they take the oils off of cannabis and they infuse them in beers. No. And they're infused. Yeah, there's chefs that are doing this.
You might as well be just talking French right now.
Well, just because you haven't talked to somebody about this, I've talked to people who are specializing in becoming, like, these terpene chefs where they take these terpenes off marijuana and they make salads out of it and dressings. It's oils that come off and they don't get you high, but it's a flavor component.
What do the Maryland terpenes have to do with...
See what I mean? I'm just saying it can be yuppie-ish. It can be kind of really dorky. But I understand what he's saying. You're not going to swirl a joint and then, spit.
I believe what he's saying is weed has always been and will always be for losers.
So... The other thing to think about is you don't have to grow weed outside. You can grow it inside a facility with lights. So as I still think California will make the best that doesn't mean they're going to be, and you can make it anywhere as long as you have electricity and the right equipment. That's kind of what I was.
We were wrong. We got the perennials and the annuals mixed up. Lawn boy Kevin, who actually grows. He grows grass of a different kind.
Thank you, Lawn Boy Kevin.
He cuts
so it's good to have a
different kind.
landscaper weigh in.
Yeah. He says that the annual means it has to be replanted every year. The perennial comes back on its own. Cannabinoids, man. That's hard to say. Cannabinoids. That's and then anonymity. I have to slow down. Cannabinoids.
What did he say?
Maybe I need to say chill.
It's not
weed.
Cannabinoids.
It's cannabinoids.
Okay. I think
so it's like saying Canada and then...
not that familiar with it.
And then inverting with Boyd's coffee.
Okay.
Cannabinoids.
That's a great way to look at it.
I don't know. I for words that are hard to say, I have to look for a trick in order to be able to say them, and I don't know what the trick would be in this instance.
So Josh is on the line, and we were just talking about the fact that our winery is going to be pulling up their vineyards in maybe 10, 20 years and just planting marijuana. He doesn't think that's the case. Go ahead, man.
I'm actually working on several grows and manufacturing plants up in King City. Nothing is put in the ground. Everything is greenhouse grown on beds. They do their own soil mixtures. So I don't see wineries digging up their vines to grow cannabis. I could see people putting greenhouses on those wineries in places where they couldn't grow the grapes.
So
that's a good point.
You need some good flat land then? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, you could dig it out. I mean,
that's true.
An excavator and you could dig it out. But I mean, I see that's kind of what I was saying right before we went to the last break was, you can grow weed anywhere. You can grow it inside. So as long as you have the right equipment
you're better
and
off.
electricity,
You're better off
good
growing
to go.
it inside.
But I would imagine that the soils here, I mean, they're so great. I mean, you talk to any farmer, they'll talk about how great our soils are. It would be almost a shame not to incorporate that somehow. But you're saying in what you're building is they're not using soil at all? It's all hydroponics?
A lot of it is hydroponics, and whatever soil they do use, I mean, you would, for lack of a better word, because it's still early for me, how scientific they're getting with how they're growing this stuff. It's not just throwing a seed in a bucket and letting it grow like you see a lot of guys do around their houses.
Right. No, that's why,
a lot of these new manufacturing places, they're not growing necessarily for recreational. It's really going into the medical field. One of my clients, it's a group of 5 doctors from down in the Los Angeles area, and they're doing stuff for specifically for what do you call it? Anti-seizure meds.
Yeah,
and it's using a mix of the THC and the CBD oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know it's going to be. I'm kind of excited to see where it goes. My mom's been using this, and she's been able to cut back on her opioids. That she's on Oxy for pain medication. She's had 5 back surgeries, and she's actually has her back fused. She has a lot of nerve pain, and this has actually helped out quite a bit. And so the fact that she doesn't have to be all doped up on morphine and Oxy, and she can actually take a CBD oil, and she can actually not when you take CBDs, you don't get high. It just helps eliminate your pain. So, yeah, I'm excited where it's going. Thanks for sharing. We appreciate it. 543-3693. Hi, go ahead. You're on the air.
My family, we're really big in the wine business, and I went to a World Ag Show yesterday in Tulare, and it just amazed me just walking around how many big agricultural farmers are talking about marijuana.
Really?
And it's the new crop, man.
That's a sign of things to come, really. I mean, when you say in 20 years, you can see a place where a lot of things are replaced by marijuana grows. I mean, we're talking about the roots of it right now when you go to an ag show in Tulare.
And you know what? I think it can. I mean, you look back to, hemp, what we used hemp for back, we could use hemp for clothes, anything you can think of, you can use hemp for. Not just smoking, not just, the medical things and stuff. And you know what? The indoor growth of marijuana, that's just only going to get bigger. Like those facilities, those warehouses, they're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's what the last guy was saying. Thank you for the call. I really appreciate the Tulare aspect of the ag show, and that winemakers,
farmers are talking about it.
Winemakers or wine growers, whatever you want to call them,
Grape growers
that are looking, and this is the big conversation, and it's the direction that it's going. And then to think, well, maybe we don't have to pull up the vines. Maybe we just have to find property that we can build a huge warehouse, and that's all it takes, man. And to think about it, it's all contained inside a warehouse in a safe, locked, secure facility. And that's, I think, going to make it easier for governments and residents of those areas to be okay with cannabis coming in.
Good morning.
Jeff and Jeremy in the morning on 93.3 KZOZ.